Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Shadow of Intent, Imperium Delirium, out June 27th as a self-release. The album has 10 tracks, 55 minutes in length, and this is the band's 5th full-length studio album. They are an American deathcore band. As far as the design of this record is concerned, this album perhaps has, in my humble opinion, the weakest spot in the way the album presents itself. Not necessarily from a song structure standpoint, but just from an overall length. If you look at 55 minutes, 10 songs, it's quite a bit. It doesn't matter what band, it doesn't matter what genre, it doesn't matter what record, 55 minutes these days for a full-length album, it's always going to be a cumbersome experience. The downsides of having such a long-length record is that it dilutes the uniquenesses of the songs, and when you get to the end of the album, everything starts to sound quite the same. So the uniquenesses become minimized, and what rises to the surface are all the commonalities that the record offers. And this hurts the overall playability of the record, and it also hurts the uniquenesses and the individualities of each and every single song that the album has. I feel for a band like Shadow of Intent, with their brutal sound, with their brutal experience, keeping the album 10-15 minutes shorter would definitely create a lot more playability within the record and even at the end of the album, because you feel like you still can go for another turn and you want to play the record again, go back to the beginning and experience everything all over. At 55 minutes, that sort of experience is only going to resonate with the heavy hitters as far as the fan base is concerned. If you're a hardcore fan of the band, 55 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes, none of that is going to persuade you to step away from the album. But for those more in the fringe, or for those discovering the band with this record, I don't think you're going to get the most out of the album because of its length, not because of the quality of the record itself. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, this album is Shadow of Intent, but I still felt like they brought some new spices and some new elements into the mix in order to give this record its own fingerprint, its own unique DNA. Now, what you're going to get that is the commonality in terms of what the previous records offered and what this record offers is that you're going to get that heaviness, that brutality, that traditional deathcore sound with a lot of symphonic elements. All of that is going to be there. What I felt was a little bit different from previous records is that this is not, I was going to say it's not as a dark record, but that's not true. This is still a very dark sounding album. It's just that that darkness is coming from a different element. It's coming from different elements all around. And I also felt like this was a record where they push some of their more commonalities, when you look at the previous albums, a little bit further. They took them just a step further, perhaps more than what they had taken it up to this point. And you can look at the symphonic elements on this record. I thought the appearance of those elements within the tracks, the way they present themselves, the impact that they have, not just to the overall melody of the songs, but to the atmosphere of the songs. There's certain tracks where they really open up the track, bringing light into the song. All of these things, while they had been there in the past, they were never really presented from this perspective. So this allows for you to use a very traditional piece of the puzzle as far as your sound is concerned, but presenting in a different angle, in a different way, creating a different experience for the listener. I thought that was really interesting. You're definitely going to see that from the symphonic side of the album, but you're also going to see that on the guitar side. This album a little bit groovier than some of the previous records, a little bit more dynamic, definitely a lot richer as far as those guitars are concerned. And you look at the solo sections on this album, they are phenomenal, bringing a lot of light, a lot of energy to the album, and also bringing a little bit of a classic heavy metal sound to a very brutal overall experience. And I think these are elements that I see them pushing almost with every record. They've pushed them a little bit more into the fold, but on this album I think it's where they've taken it the furthest. Now, once you get into the vocals are very consistent. It's been a DNA of the band, and I think if there's one element within this record that perhaps changes the least is the vocal performance and the overall vocal tracks that this album has. I will say that I really enjoyed the fact that this album uses some choir, some backing vocals, not just as a support to the main vocal lines, but also to create atmosphere, to add ambiance. to play off of that overall darkness that exists within this record and really creating a cinematic experience. This is their most cinematic, theatrical sounding album to date, and that's why it's also the most open sounding album to date. And understanding that if you're going to have that sound, you need something vocally to kind of match that experience, still allowing you to have those consistent deathcore style vocal approaches. It's really the perfect formula in order for you to better merge and bridge what the sound is offering you with what the vocals are giving you. And I thought that this album really found that perfect balance, that perfect coexistence of styles. Now, all around, this is a very strong record. This is, like I said, their biggest in size, their biggest in volume, their richest sounding album, where the guitars definitely have more than just one lane. The guitars on this album sound magnificent, and I think this is the richest sounding album guitar-wise that they've ever released. But it really comes down to the length. To me, that is the only issue that I have with this record, because I feel like the album could be even more memorable. The album could have been even more impactful had the experience been a little bit shorter. Because, like I said, once you get to the bottom end of the record, it starts to become very difficult to tell the forest from the trees. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with They Murdered Sleep. Super strong song. Massive size with the symphonic elements really adding this very clean and cinematic experience to the song, almost allowing the track within itself to have a little bit more room to breathe, without taking anything away from how heavy and how dark the overall song is. But the right open pockets within the song not only make the track more dynamic, it also makes the track more palpable, a little bit easier to digest. The vocals are absolutely brutal, great guitar solo, adding a lot of light, a lot of energy, once again opening up the song even more. Then you have the Facets of Propaganda. The atmosphere that the vocals infuse into this song, in my opinion, is insane and super important for this track to work. It's a track that has melody, that has size, that has depth. The verses, super brutal, musically and vocally, just relentless. Then you get into this more crafted chorus that allows the track to have different dynamics. And when you talk about darkness in a song, this song has it through the melodies that the track carries, specifically when the piano comes in. Wow, the melody on the piano really brings this somber atmosphere to the song, and I think that's really important in order to add those textures, those richnesses that this album has and that this song offer. Another great solo on this track, magnificent guitar solo. I love the guitar sound on the song throughout, from the heavier to the groovier to the more melodic. This track has absolutely everything guitar-wise that the overall album is going to give you. Last but not least, Apocalypse Canvas. This is an instrumental track, and I picked this track because it's such a good song and it's so different from all the others. It's definitely more technical. It's definitely proggier. I would say this is your almost prototypical prog technical death metal song, a lot more than deathcore. There's very deathcore within this track. This is a more traditional proggy technical death metal track, and that's why it stands out, being also an instrumental track that also allows it to stand out. So there's definitely two elements on this song that give it its own uniqueness, that gives it its own DNA, and then you have to just admire the guitar prowess on this song. The guitar playing throughout this entire track is phenomenal. I would love to see them include a little bit more of this style, of this approach into some of their songs, not going as deep into that well as they did with this instrumental track, and I think the fact that it's an instrumental track allowed them to do so a lot better. But I would love to see them include some of the elements that this song offers in some of their more traditional songs, creating more of a hybrid experience, if you will, because this song definitely delivers great quality all around. This is it, Shadow of Intent with Imperium Delirium, once again out June 27th as a self-release. Hit me up in the comment section, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, guys.